Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Neurodivergent Creators Collective Storytelling for Good workshop.
Today, we're going to start with a story. Imagine a young little boy, 5 or 6 years old. In first grade, he was held back, one of only 3 people held back. And so he was already feeling like a fish out of water, someone who wasn't necessarily feeling good about self-esteem. He loved life, was full of life, and loved sports, loved God, went to church, was an altar boy, but yet in school he struggled. He had sisters and brothers who were 6 or 7 years older than him, parents that divorced when he was 10. A lot of problems and a lot of issues. And then on top of that, um, he had feelings of insecurities. When his parents were going through their troubles, he was a little boy who hid in the closet to not hear all of the fighting going on. Now imagine that boy in the classroom with all of these other things going on, and then struggling to do math, struggling to put letters together, seeing letters combining and not being able to really see things that his peers could see. And imagine that little boy in the classroom in a reading assignment where they had to go around and read. And so the teacher asked for someone to read, and everyone in the room raises their hand except for him. He shrinks internally and not wanting to be seen. He wants to hide. In math, throughout his entire life in education, it was in remedial classes and struggled. The numbers never meshed together. Now, fast forward a few years, and that same little boy was there, not realizing that he ended up being an accountant for 5 years. He then ended up helping to edit a magazine. He was writing articles for that magazine. That little boy had no idea when he was a little boy that he was dyslexic or had ADHD. That boy was me.
Now, imagine a curious and very active little girl. She might have even sat with her knees in a W. And now imagine her at about 7 years old with strawberry blonde hair and big brown eyes and freckles, white skin that would never tan no matter how long she was outside. She was the tallest kid in her class, boy or girl, and she would be until about third grade. She was an only child, doted on by her parents. She was adopted right after birth. And although she loved her mom and dad dearly, she never really knew why her birth parents gave her up for adoption. That left her feeling sad and rejected and insecure and missing something. During that time in elementary school, she was the kind of kid who was always super curious. Some might even say nosy, incessantly asking questions. She was the one that was always raising her hand, always blurting out, asking why. And if you didn't give enough of an answer, she would ask you again. She was often so excited that she would forget to raise her hand and would easily clock others that didn't follow the rules. But she didn't realize that what she was doing was socially inappropriate. She didn't see herself as being impolite or annoying because she was just curious and wanted to learn. And so after a while, when people seemed to get tired of all of her questions, she became a book lover. She'd check out as many books from the library as she could, and she even dreamed about being able to live in the library. She'd get sent to school in dresses, really funky 70s dresses with polka dots and stripes and all the fashion. but she hated them because they were really itchy and scratchy. To be truthful, she would rather be out playing with the boys, hanging out on the lawn, doing kickball. And she got enough grass stains on her dresses that eventually her mom decided to send her in school in pants. And so that fixed that itchy tag thing. She was also what people would call a really, really picky eater. You know, the kind of kid that only ate their foods plain, loved beige, would eat the same cereal for breakfast every day, Cocoa Puffs, peanut butter sandwiches for lunch, no jelly. And if someone ever changed the recipe on the macaroni and cheese or the chicken nuggets, she would never touch it again. The problem with eating this way is that because she ate the peanut butter every single day, she got a little bit bigger than other kids her age. And so by age 3, she had already started her eating disorder. By age 5, she was already the biggest person in her class, not only in height, but also in weight. And the kids would start making fun of her, and it would stick with her for the next 50 years. All that hurt that she carried from being picked on helped her develop a firm sense of justice and standing up for other kids. In fact, anybody who was not like her, anybody who felt odd or an outsider outside the norm, those are the kids she gravitated towards because she knew that they were feeling hurt or different inside like her. And if there was another kid, a little kid with glasses, a little kid with a striped shirt that didn't want to read and was hiding under their desk and didn't want to be called on because they were embarrassed that they might not say the words right, well, she wanted to help that little kid. So she'd be the first one to blurt out, first one to raise her hand, first person to jump in and interrupt and say the answers to every single question because she wanted to protect that little kid. And she thought she was helping, but all of her classmates just thought she was a know-it-all. Didn't do it because she wanted attention. In fact, that was kind of the last thing she was looking for. But she did it because she wanted to protect them from feeling like not enough, like others didn't get it. And she had no idea that day that she was autistic. She had no idea she had ADHD. There wasn't such a thing about sensory processing issues or avoidant restrictant feeding or eating disorders and things like that. She just knew that she didn't belong, like she was a kid from another planet. That little kid was me, as you might have guessed. And I didn't know it then, but God was planting seeds in me, seeds of empathy, seeds of compassion, seeds of future storytelling and advocacy. And surprisingly, those seeds turned into something called autism empowerment. It really still amazes me that 2 kids from opposite parts of the country, both growing up with learning differences, both growing up feeling like they didn't fit in or belong, at some point, both of them either wanting to potentially take their own lives or not want to move forward. Somehow we found each other. Sometimes we found each other, and we've been together for 33 years.
All those years later, the two kids spent their whole lives feeling that as they were outsiders, a world discovered our paths, were preparing us for something greater, a bigger purpose, telling our story.
Your story does that too. You have your own story, and your journey, your personal journey is going to be different than anybody else's. But your story matters, and it's important that people hear it. Just think that you might be planting seeds now for something later. So I know that was an unconventional way to start out a presentation, and I know we kind of flubbed it up and it was awkward, but that's part of telling your own story. Sometimes we don't get it perfectly. Sometimes we don't get it right. We're not perfect. We're works in progress, and we have to start somewhere. So today we're talking about storytelling for good and how people like us, people who have flaws, people who have beautiful gifts to share. We can all share our stories. My name is Karen Krejcha, and I am the executive director and co-founder of Autism Empowerment. And we are home to the wonderful Neurodivergent Creators Collective, programs like Spectrum Life Magazine, Autism We Embrace, and also Autism Serves Helping Hands.
So it was kind of fun starting with a story, obviously having the whole theme of the event storytelling for good. My name is John Krejcha.
Yeah.
I'm the co-founder of Autism Empowerment. I currently serve as the programs director, and I'm your friendly neighborhood encourager and motivator. If you'd like, please feel free to in the chat to say who you are, and where you're from, and a passion that you have.
Yeah,
We want to
we
welcome
would
everyone.
love to get to know you, love to see who's here. And so we will take a moment while you guys type your name in your chat, where you're from. And while you're doing that, I'll just give a couple of housekeeping notes. We're going to be covering a lot of content today. A lot of it's going to be really new concepts that you haven't heard of. It's going to be a framework that we're going to teach you that you can use for your life, but also as a framework that you can use for your storytelling and your creative passions and endeavors. It can help you with creating characters. It can help you with doing podcasts. It can help you with your art. And it can also help you with things like healing and leadership and moving forward in your life. So it's a lot of content, but we just ask you to listen because we've got the slides available. We've got the slides that you can look at afterwards. We've got an FAQ, a frequently asked questions handout that'll explain things in more detail. And we just ask that you come in with a sense of grace and love and willingness to kind of explore a new concept and see how that might apply to your life.
Also, wanted to let you know that the slides are available at www.autismempowerment.org. And if you go to the program section and find the Neurodivergent Creators Collective, and you can see that as upcoming events, or if you go and simply type in AENCC, you should be able to find it there. The handouts will also be in the resource library, which I believe they already are. Just to let you know, we're kind of running off of a script, and that's partially to help me. As you are aware, I'm dyslexic now, and it helps me as one of my accommodations, is so I at least can stay on track. So I appreciate your grace and humility as we go along. In case you think I'm reading something, I probably am.
And, I laugh because I also appreciate a good script because being autistic, I'm the kind of person who has so much stuff going on in my head at the same time that I just can't get it out of my mouth in the way that I want to say it. So a lot of times I'll be super excited and I'll blurt something out and it'll be the exact opposite. And so the script helps give me clarity and it also helps deal with the anxiety that I face. I almost bailed out of this presentation about 5 minutes before we started because I got that anxiety going. But you know what? We're here and we truly appreciate your willingness to be with us in this process. So we're going to talk about why we're here. We're talking about storytelling, okay? Every one of us has a story that is worth telling. Every one of you has a life with a lot of different moments, both good and bad, heartbreaking and exciting. And even the parts that hurt, in fact, oftentimes the parts that really, really hurt are the ones that turn into the best stories that we can share with others to build connection and community. They help us feel less alone, and stories help us build bridges to other people.
And storytelling isn't just for writers or filmmakers. It's for advocates, it's for leaders, it's for friends, it's for teachers, it's for family members. Anyone who wants to make this world a better, kinder, and gentler place.
And before we go any further, There's something else that we want you to know along with storytelling. At the heart of everything that we teach, including what you're going to be hearing today, there's something that we want you to know. This light switch method that you're going to be hearing about soon, all of this kind of stuff comes along with a core belief, and that is love is our legacy. Every time you show up somewhere, like one of these groups, or out in the community as your authentic self, every time that you share your truth with compassion, every time that you can listen, identify, give, honor, and transform, you're planting seeds, and you're planting seeds of love that go much farther than this moment. You're creating a legacy for yourself that will live on. And what is storytelling for good? The topic of our workshop. So, at its basic level, storytelling for good is simply this, at least this is our definition. You may have slightly different definition, but we see it as using your story, whatever that might be. And it could also be the stories that you tell, the stories with your characters, a story in music, a story in a film. It's taking any stories that you create to bring light into this world. Stories move hearts before they move minds. I'll say that again. Stories move hearts before they move minds. They help us grow. They help us heal. They remind us that we matter. They help us see ourselves in other people. And they also build courage. And we always have stories in development. So right now, we'd like you to imagine what kind of storyteller or creator that you would like to become, or maybe that you've been in the past.
So this is kind of one of the things you can think about, and if you want to share it, feel free to share. If not, this is something internally to kind of look through and see about in an introspective type of thing.
Yes, we'll be having different little prompts there on the screen, and a lot of times they're going to be reflective questions. Don't worry if you put something in chat, I'm not going to go read it out like I just did with all the intros. We respect and honor your privacy, and want you to just be able to take this for what it is. If you want to participate, awesome. And so with that, we'll go ahead and move on to the next slide.
So why storytelling matters, whether you're an actor, a film writer, a puppeteer, an animator, a podcaster, a musician, you write music, you write you're a painter, an advocate. Your story can be your tool,
Mm-hmm.
is your tool.
Yes, and it can be a tool for leadership, it can be a tool for advocacy, creative expression, healing and growth, empathy and empowerment. Essentially, storytelling helps you connect in some way personally or through your characters with others on a deeper level. So now we're going to ask you to imagine a light switch. There's one there on the screen, but you might have your own vision of it. It could be one of those that just goes on and off immediately into the light or the dark. Or how I like to think of it sometimes is a light switch that has a dimmer, because sometimes we don't want the light on right away. That's too bright. Sometimes we just want it to go on or off. But imagine a light switch that turns on. So a light switch moment is when something clicks.
When you have an aha moment, when
Yes.
you're like, oh, that's something that really resonates deeply within inside of you, and finally becomes something ingrained. For me, it was really accepting the dyslexia and understanding I needed tools to be able to overcome them. I have a wonderful person who helps me proof all of my emails that go out. It was like an aha moment, but it was also a moment where I knew I need to then take it a little bit deeper and find what I can do to help assist me in different things.
Hmm. We all have a lot of light switch or light bulb, sometimes they say light bulb, moments in our lives. And like John, those aha moments, a lot of me came for me came after both my two children's diagnosis and also my own. It's like all of these reasons that I didn't understand why I was so different than everybody else began to make sense. And as I learned more and more and got more information, I started to replay all this stuff from the past, and it was like, oh, that's that. Okay, now that makes sense. So you think about a light switch moment as something where suddenly you didn't have realization before, and then it hit you, and it's like, uh-huh, okay. And so that's a light switch moment.
So introducing the light switch method, that brings us to the heart of what we're going to be working on today, our framework.
Hmm. And this is, yes, like John said, this is a framework. This is the heart of the teaching today, and it's the heart of storytelling. And it's the key to you illuminating more light in your personal life as well as in the creative work that you do. And we want you to hear it and think about it. It's a 5-step process. It works best when you go from one step to another sequentially, but sometimes just taking 1 or 2 steps where you're at, that's a great start. And we're going to go over each one. And every one of these steps helps you take your life experiences, whether good or bad or confusing or however it might be, and it allows you to turn those into stories. And those stories can be stories for advocacy, they can be for your art or creative work, and those stories help you spread light and let your own personal light shine. The first is listen. And listening is something that it can often be difficult to do, especially if you're a passionate person and you tend to be the one doing the talking. I'm a very passionate person, and yet I'm an introvert. And you'll see if we're out in the community that I'll be one that tends to be more doing more listening, and John will be doing the expressive part. Listening means listening to yourself, listening to your internal thoughts. It also means listening to others. It means listening with presence in stillness, and it means listening without pressure. As a neurodivergent person, it might be listening to the things that just constantly come back again and again in your brain, the things that you want to create, the topics that are your passions or your special interests. You can apply listening to everything that you do. And, like, for example, a fiction writer might want to listen as they're writing characters. They might want to think about them and listen to their characters' fears. A podcaster might want to listen to their guests using a tone that shows empathy and compassion and allows them to let their guests light shine. An animator might be listening to rhythm and motion. And advocates are listening for lived experiences that they can use. But before they post them or present them or spread them to the world, they listen very carefully to see what it is they're comfortable sharing and what's sacred for them to keep.
So listening in action shows up in themes. Will seem to show up through themes throughout your life. Sometimes you can't just stop thinking about it. Sometimes it'll be something that you or a creative idea that you just want to do. A theme that a song that keeps on coming up in your head that you want to sing in the shower. It's something that just keeps on coming up and coming up in your life.
Mm-hmm. It could have started in childhood. You might have had a passion for the weather. It might have come out later in life. But you want to pay attention to all those nudges and those quiet ideas, those moments that you might have overlooked because you were maybe rushing or doubting yourself. Listen to what feels true to you.
And for creative people, this may look like, again, paying back the attention that keeps on coming to you over and over again.
Mhm. Being autistic, one of the hallmarks of being autistic is having these specialized focused interests, these really, really deep passions. And for us, we can tap into these things, and they're often really, really strengths that we can use to be able to create our stories, to be able to share our stories and find career opportunities, write music, all of the good things. So being neurodivergent, I think this is just such a real blessing for us because we know a lot of times things that we're really passionate about. So it might be easier for us to listen and tap into that and see how we might be able to use those themes that keep showing up in our life and use them for good.
So here are two prompts for you to kind of think about. What do you feel passionate about? What kind of envelops your core? And what themes keep on showing up in your life? Do certain things or patterns or people keep on coming up in your life that just you need to take action on? So these are some things to think about, some things to kind of percolate some for you. The next one is identify. So the next step in the light is to identify. This is where you want to look at the story and experience. What's really this all about? Or what's the core, what's the root of things going on? Sometimes you can think of the story is about an event, but it's actually about a truth that the character is trying to get out. Maybe it's a story about losing a job, but it's not really about losing the job, but it's about resilience and how they come back about losing a job. Maybe the story is about growing up in a different era and then discovering really your true identity and maybe a neurodivergence within yourself. So there's a lot of trying to get this is kind of like a hard one because a lot of times you have to really do a lot of internal working on this particular section.
Yeah, when you start to identify certain truths within yourself, it can feel pretty uncomfortable. So this, out of all the 5 steps, is one that you have to sort of do the most work on. When you're looking at it from the lens of a creator, you can be identifying things that your characters might do. But when you do that, it's really best if you can kind of practice it yourself. It requires you to look beneath the surface to get to the root causes of issues. But you want to ask yourself, what truth is this situation, this maybe this hard, adverse situation? What truth is it teaching me? And for creators, this is where you can also identify your theme, which is the message that you want other people to take away. So if you're a poet, you might want to identify the emotion that you're trying to convey through what it is you're writing. If you're doing a script, you want to identify what is it that drives your characters, what's their backstory, what is really the root cause behind their backstory.
Can I
How,
say something really quick, Kay,
yeah,
on that particular one?
yeah.
Gwen had done a workshop, I think 2 months ago, a month or two ago, about really getting into your character. That was really I suggest people to go back and watch that. And because that she did an amazing job of really getting um, talking about getting the backstory of a person, getting to the feelings of a particular person and what they're going through that whole process. It's not just the acting part, it's getting into the whole character and the why behind the character. So I just wanted to give a potential another place where people can get some more really good information about that.
Yeah, John, and I appreciate you doing that. That was a great workshop. We have a lot of this one's a little bit this workshop, if you've been to other workshops, this one's coming across a little different, right? If you're new for the first time, you might be going, "Oh, are all of them like this?" But no, we offer a variety of different workshops from different lenses of different creators coming from different places, talking about different subjects. And just as we're sharing our stories with you, they share their stories and their content and their teaching through their own lens. So please do go back and identify other topics in our resources that might be able to help you with the other things that you do creatively. So yes, I guess to finish off identify, just think about identifying a theme that keeps coming up in your life. So the next step is the G. That's give. And when you share your story, you're giving a piece of yourself. It's a gift that you share. And it doesn't have to be perfect. Goodness knows, we all, well, goodness knows, I will say that I flub so much, but I still try and I'm still trying to get it out there. And so I think that when we do things authentically and um, that people are receptive because they know we're human. So you give and you
Also,
create
when you give
to connect, not
from
impressed.
a perspective of love instead of fear, you turn your story from that gift into caring.
Yeah, yes, yes. And the more you do it, the easier it becomes. A lot of times when you're self-focused on yourself or you're nervous or you're anxious, this is me. I will I will tell myself to volunteer or go do something for someone else because then that'll take me out of my own head. That'll take me out of my insecurities, my anxieties. And by giving to someone else, not only are you helping them or helping a cause, but it feels good. So giving is beautiful because it helps spread more light into the world and it expands it.
So you create to connect, not to impress. Giving can look differently for every single person. It might mean publishing a poem. It might be writing a song. It might be performing on stage. It might be going to an open poetry mic night and doing open poetry. It could just be simply telling your story to a friend that you know, a one-on-one experience. It doesn't have to be grand, but it helps in every single facet.
Mm-hmm. And when we give, we shift from protecting our story to sharing it. And when we can share our story, a lot of times other people out there feel seen. It's like they don't feel like there is alone. That was one of the big things when we were starting autism empowerment is that there weren't a lot of autistic-led organizations out there. So there weren't a lot of autistic adults telling their stories. And a lot of the narrative out there was about autistic kids. And that's great. But autistic kids grow up to be autistic adults. And so many times after parents would have their kids diagnosed, someone in their family would get a diagnosis. And there wasn't a whole lot of talk about that. So I think that sometimes when we're brave enough to step out in faith and to share our story, it allows the opportunity for someone else to have the courage to do the same and to realize that they're not the only one.
You know, that also applies to advocates as well. It might mean standing up for a friend. It might mean speaking out at a meeting, starting a conversation. We recently had a friend of ours, run for a public office because the other person was running unopposed, and didn't even though her odds of winning were very slight, she took that leap of faith and she stepped out. So there's all types of things as far as an advocate can be. It might be going to a protest. It might be going, writing a petition, writing your congressman or your senator. So there's a lot of ways that advocacy is very much part of giving.
Absolutely.
Do you have other examples, Kay?
Um, I think, there's just so many different ones, right? If you're a podcast host, it's giving the opportunity for someone else to shine. If you are an editor in a magazine, it's giving opportunities for people to be able to share their stories. Or if you're doing interviews with people, in writing, it's giving the opportunity to shine a light on the awesome work that they might be doing. If you're in a position, any type of position where you can, help another person to be able to, share their art or share their creations. that's something that, I feel like Brian and Gwen with the Neurodivergent Creators Collective, they're giving so much of themselves, so much of their time to be able to help and to mentor and to work together to share concepts with people. And really, the whole community of the Neurodivergent Creators Collective is all about like connection with each other, giving each other feedback and sharing our stories and sharing the passions we have and the things we want to create. So there's all sorts of wonderful opportunities for giving, both creatively and then just in our daily lives. So that brings us to step 4 in the light switch model, and that's honor. And this is a really important one too, because when you're telling your story, especially if you're neurodivergent like me and have a tendency to overshare, you want to kind of be able to rein things back a little bit, because honor means respecting other people's boundaries, but also your own. And sometimes you may not really realize what those boundaries are until after you may have blurted something out that you wish you could take back. So that's goes back to that listening piece and identifying what these core issues are before you give yourself away. You want to honor those stories. You don't need to reveal everything in your life to be real. Your worth, we're not in a competition. Your worth isn't measured by how much pain you have, even though that might be helpful to share. It's not a requirement. And it's also a work in progress. For myself, I've had a lot of things in my past that I wasn't able to be able to share until I was, middle age, which is, I guess, now. It's okay to keep parts of your story to yourself or just for you.
And honoring also means respecting yourself and others on how you tell the story. If you're talking about a very sensitive topic, yours or someone else's, make sure you have the permission from that person to protect their privacy. And remember, your worth isn't measured by how much you share. Um, and and that also goes to if someone gives you permission to share up to a point, you don't go past that point as well. That's very important because you want to honor their story and their boundaries. In a creative world, honoring also means giving credit where credit's due. If someone helped you along the way, if they inspired you, give them a shout out, give them a hey, this is someone who helped me along the way. Writers, some chapters in your story or your life just need to rest before you can release it. Visual artists get permission before portraying real stories. Family advocates ask loved ones what they're comfortable sharing, what they're comfortable to be able to be shared with. Um, and that's something that we've learned around along the way to be able to make sure that those boundaries are um, respected and honored.
Absolutely. And to that point, honor also means gratitude, thanking them. Remembering that it is a gift if someone gives you permission to share their story, and it is an honor. And to be humble about it and to be thankful. And remember that, all of us, we stand on other people's shoulders, the people that came before us, the advocates, the mentors, the editors, the friends, the teachers who, saw us and may have inspired us to become who we are today. So, uh, to that point, when we honor others, we end up also building trust and authenticity, and people feel that you're a safe person that they can go to, and then trust helps keep the light going. So we just moved
T is
in.
for transform.
Yeah, we just moved into the final step. That's T, transform. And this is the moment when your story just doesn't belong to you anymore. It becomes part of something bigger. You've planted some seeds and now they're out there, and you never really know what might happen of them, but something beautiful, you can be sure, is probably going to be taking place.
So transformation is the art or is when like for example, when art or advocacy changes hearts and minds. It's when someone watches a short film and says, "Ah, that's what it's like to be dyslexic," or "That's what it's like to be ADHD." When someone reads a poem or feels less alone, when they hear a musical song on the radio, and it's just like, wow, that resonates with me because I went through that same thing. So there's a lot, that's where you make those connections and giving, and then it transforms not only yourself, but others as well.
Mhm. And in transformation, John, that's real important because it happens inside of you, right? A lot of times when you truly realize that your story matters, when you truly realize that that crappy thing that happened to you, well, it actually, that adversity that you really hadn't asked for, well, it actually ended up being for a good reason. And you had that moment where suddenly you were able to transform and see something that happened to you in a different way. And you were able to heal and let go of it, but able to turn it into something beautiful and find peace in a place where something else used to really hurt. In the creative world, it could be when, say, a reader finds hope in a character that you created, they related, and it helped them keep going. As for me, you know, a lot of times I was inspired by, as someone who struggled with depression a lot when I was young, I was inspired by people who, by a person who told me that every day you make it, you know, is a success. And so sometimes just a concept that someone will share will be something that will stick with you and transform the way you look at things. It could be, you know, just realizing you're not alone and sharing that with someone else. Or, you know, in a workplace or in a classroom, it could be, you know, a coworker thinking that it would be great to practice inclusion and have accommodations, or a teacher realizing like, oh, universal design is something that benefits everybody. So sharing of ourselves often transforms the way that other people may see a situation and helps with things like inclusion.
So could change. So what we're talking about is changing someone's perspective, helping someone feel less alone, less isolated, less, less, you know, um, or sparking a feeling or a healing within inside of them or yourself is still another transformational type of moment. Transformation doesn't always look grand. Sometimes it's just one person typing in the chat, "Me too," you know, being seen. That's so important sometimes. Just that concept of being seen is allowing the person to start to heal that they're not alone and there's other people out there. So today we have kind of like that prompt. How has your storytelling changed you? We have a lot of people in here that I know have done some creative, super creative things and have used their storytelling to really help change people's minds and hearts. So light is um, listen, identify, give, honor, and transform. Light turns experiences into purpose, and this is how we turn the light within us and how we will grow. So the next is the secret sauce behind everything. So you add all of those three things. Um, love. Now that you have that will walk you through the light, listen, identify, give, honor, and transform. There's one more special ingredient that brings everything together, and that's love. Love is the power that powers the light switch. Love is that helps us listen with compassion. It makes our stories more meaningful. Love is what allows people to remember, to have courage, to move from identity with honesty, with honor, with integrity, and transform with purpose. Love is what makes storytelling healing of ourselves and for people that we touch. Without love, stories can be clever, they can be funny, they can be entertaining, but they're not going to really move to that next level of transforming or healing. So when you add that love section, that's going to be what's going to be that kind of getting you over the hump to really make it intentionally um, powerful. Love is the warmth that changes how we see ourselves. Love is the greatest that protects our hearts. Love is the courage that helps us speak the truth. Love is the connection that brings us all together. And that's why we say that love is the secret sauce. And when we choose to live and create in a place of love, that's not just helping ourselves, it's actually shaping our legacy for love.
Yeah, so uh in the chat, if you guys just want to say like when you hear the word love, um what is the first thing that comes to mind? Uh because love is our legacy. Um and so I think that love, as I was saying before, love is our secret sauce. But yeah, so feel free to just say in the chat what you think of when you think of love, whether it's family, friends, significant other, friendship. What types of things do you guys think of when it comes to love? Oh, ooh, acceptance. I like that. Connection, appreciation. And that's a lot of what we're trying to facilitate here is we want everyone to feel accepted, appreciated, and seen. So I think it's really good that you guys are saying acceptance, appreciation, and love is means so many different things, different people. And I personally think that I when I feel accepted, I feel loved. So supported, family. I think it very powerful things being said here in the chat.
Thank you, everybody. So, love is our legacy. This is so important because um, legacy, a lot of times people think about legacy as fame. They think about it as power or having the right looks or the right money or the right house or the right car or all that. But then none of that stuff matters, right? Um, it's really about the way that we love each other and the way that we love ourselves and we love our neighbors, and we do it through our stories and our creativity and our advocacy. And these are the kinds of loving things that last. These are the kinds of gifts that people remember.
When we choose kindness over criticism, courage over fear, connection over isolation, and compassion over judgment.
Yeah, yeah. And when you think about it, every time that you share a story authentically, just being you, trying to take the mask off as much as possible, when you do that, you are planting a seed of love and light, and that keeps growing. And honestly, you may never know who your story touches. It may be something as simple as opening a door for somebody at a grocery store and their hands were full and you totally changed the trajectory of their day. So acts of love, I can't say enough good things about that. You may never know, and
And
it
sometimes
always
the
makes me
greatest
laugh.
legacy is to leave, is to helping someone else feel someone else so they don't feel alone.
Yeah, yeah, and I think to that extent that sometimes one of the most loving things we can do for ourselves in order that we can better love others is to be able to listen and identify the things that we need to release from ourselves that have been weighing us down and have dimmed that light, so to speak, or turned our switch off so that we can turn our switch on back again and then we can start to grow and we can illuminate the path for ourselves, and we can help illuminate a path for others.
And that comes to our next practice, and that's a great segue.
So the next practice, as you might see there on the screen, also goes right along with light. And it's let it go, heal, and transform. This is something I really like. It's a reflective and it's a restorative practice that helps us release things, trauma and difficulties and challenges that we've experienced in the past. And when we're able to do this, light grows when healing begins. You know, all of the negative self-talk, this is one that I'm always working on. The thing that says, you're too much, you're not enough, you're to this, you're not that. Oh my goodness, that reel, you know, when that reel plays, that doesn't help you. That's dimming that light. That's turning off the light. So when you can start to let go of that, identify it and let go, that's when you'll see that light shine.
And this is something you can do privately and quietly at your own pace. You don't have to force anything. There's no pressure. You don't have to go fast. There's no expectations. Just start with one thing that you can put down to try to release.
Mm-hmm. And it's always something that's in progress, right? And none of us are perfect. There's always going to be stuff to work on. But I'll tell you, once you start to let go of some of that stuff, it's like you're carrying a backpack full of rocks. And so as soon as, you know, you start to throw out the rocks and it gets lighter and you feel, oh, okay, I can walk a little faster, get a little more pep in my step. And then you say, hey, I can throw out another rock. And before you know it, you're just like throwing rocks left and right. And you're so light and going and bouncing. And so it's a good practice.
So that brings us to what we're asking you to do in this coming week. Try one small act to shine your light.
It could be something as simple as sharing a small story or an anecdote. It could be an encouragement, shout out to a creator, a nice comment like Gwen made in the chat saying that we've got you, that you're worth waiting for. That was shining it forward already. It's just, you know, try one act of kindness and see how it feels. And realize that that's shining a light and that's shining a light and turning it on for someone else. And before you know it, all sorts of sparks are out there and things are being lit up. One small spark goes a long way. So I know that we covered an awful lot of stuff, and I know that we had some technical issues and all these different types of things. But you know what? That's okay because that's life. And that was the way that this presentation appropriately was intended to be. Well, not intended to be, but that's the way that it came out. And so our key takeaway, if you forget everything else that happened, what I want you to remember is that your story matters, that you are super, super important and loved, and that you have light within you. And when you share that light, you can help other people shine too. So come as you are, flaws and all, and let that light shine.
Questions. So there's no pressure. There was a lot to go over. If you have questions, we're happy to answer anything that you have for us. There's no pressure. So I don't, again, have access to the chat. So you can either raise
I
your
do.
hand or type it in chat.
I can see anything new from when I logged back in. So
Yeah,
don't
there
see.
Okay.
weren't any questions while you were gone, so.
Okay. And you know, this is an awful lot. It may take a while to process everything, and that's why we've got the amazing replay, which will be available for you within the next couple days. And we'll have slides. We're going to be fleshing out the light switch method and these light concepts more to be able to help you apply it specifically to different creative endeavors as well as advocacy. This is sort of an introduction to it so that you can think about it and see how it might apply and be beneficial to your life. But we are just so humbled that you stuck with us and allowed us to share this with you. So thank you so much. And thank you for the nice comments in chat. Appreciate it.
I just want to say that was a fantastic presentation. Storytelling for Good was one of our more popular topics in our interest survey, and I think that just really fulfilled, I think, what everybody was looking for. So great job, John and Karen. So
Appreciate it.
awesome.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
We have someone asking what the plan for December 13th is.
There you go. Upcoming workshops. What a great question. So we have our chill and chat coming up, I believe on the first
Saturday,
weekend
December
in
6th.
December. So that's coming up right around the corner. And then for December 13th, Nick Novicki, founder of the Easter Seals Disability Challenge, will be joining us via Zoom. And then in January, we're going to be doing storyboarding for film production. That will both be live at Stephen's Place and also via Zoom. I believe that's a hybrid. We're getting back into the hybrid season, if you will.
Mm-hmm. And someone, a question in the chat, chill and chat. Actually, let Brian or Gwen come in and kind of explain this because they are our AENCC leads and they can kind of tell you all the goodness that's coming up because they have amazing curriculum planned for next year. So I'll let one of them come up.
I'll jump in. I love to talk. Chill and chat is no schedule, no topic. It is absolutely member driven. Everybody shows up and you can ask questions. You can meet other people. We've put an artist together with a young man who has some great stories, but he was having problems visualizing characters. So they both ended up on the October Chill and Chat, and now they're working together, bringing that story to life. We talk a lot about the Easter Seals Disability Film Challenge, just because that's coming up in April, and we really want to get everybody involved. We are also looking for ideas from our members. What will make this better? On the 1st of this month, one of our members suggested having a directory of the Neurodivergent Creators Collective members. Who are our directors? Who are our actors? Who wants to learn more about editing? Who wants to learn more about lighting? And have a list. So within the next couple of weeks, I'm going to email you yet again. I love emailing you guys. So, Chill and Chat is wide open, and it's kind of like a monthly brainstorming session. And I am there covering kind of the actor voiceover part of it. And Brian thankfully covers music and writing and also film production and directing, stuff like that.
That is
So
awesome.
we do have one last thing that we want to say, right, Kay?
Yes.
We want to thank people for being here and
Absolutely.
for coming as you are, being open to listening to a new concept, and for sharing your light with us.
Mm-hmm. And to remember, of course, that your story matters, that you're important, and that you're loved, and that we want you to share and shed some of that light and share it with others so that more of us can shine.
And let your light shine beautifully, bravely, and authentically.
Yes. So thank you so much. Again, thank you for giving us grace. You gave to us. So we are so happy for that. And we hope to continue to give to you and share our lights together. So We look forward to learning more about all of you.
Thank you,
Okay.
everyone.
Thank
Thank you.
you. Bye.
Thank you.